Yo, we are so back. Ooh, it feels good. Ooh, I'm rusty. I'm out of practice. I haven't looked at Lord of the Rings in weeks. I've been reading the Silmarillion in the sauna at the hotel. I had the loveliest holiday and then a perfectly fine work trip. And I'm so happy to be back. Oh my god, 2 weeks is way too long. What up, what up, what up, what up? Thank y'all for being here. As noted, we're going to read a few little excerpts from Appendix A today. I don't know if we're going to do any other ones on this read through, and that's not because there's not really good shit in them. It's because I really want to get to The Hobbit, and I really also want to get to the Silmarillion. So I feel like, I don't know, now that I'm flipping through, maybe we might do more appendices next week. Let me know in the chat if you're as eager for the Hobbit as I am, and maybe I'll do more appendices next week, but I really just want to get on with it. Ooh, it's May, baby, let's go. All right, so I'm just going to kind of bop around and read some little bits. The Annals of the Kings and Rulers, which is what Appendix A is very long, and we don't need all of it. I'm kind of going to read some greatest hits type stuff, the most directly relevant to the story type stuff, and also the tale of Aragorn and Arwen, because, I mean, Tolkien said it's important, right? I feel like we should listen to that. The humpin'. Does this video come with Portuguese subtitles? I wish. I did impulse purchase a Portuguese copy of Lord of the Rings, and it's currently helping this plant get more light. It's like stacked precariously on a bunch of books. But I don't know. I do know the story well enough that I feel like I could use it as a tool to learn Portuguese if I want to do that. Hello, hello. Do all the appendix in one stream? How much time do you have? So yeah, we're going to do Appendix A. Undecided on the rest of it. But you know me, we'll probably end up doing more next week. So, concerning the sources for most of the matter contained in the following appendices, especially A to D, see the note at the end of the prologue. The section A3, Durin's folk, was probably derived from Gimli the dwarf, who maintained his friendship with Peregrine and Meriadoc and met them again many times in Gondor and Rohan. So, little intro here, again situating this as like, these are the notes that I was able to find in compiling this history of Middle-earth, ostensibly. Just even the inclusion of appendices at the end of a fantasy story, he was cooking. He was cooking so good, dude. It like never ceases to amaze me. What a nerd. The pronunciation guide, come on. Also, we can't read the pronunciation guide because then I'll have no excuse for how terribly I pronounce everything, and I'm going to read the Silmarillion to y'all. So I don't think I could live it down. All right, the Númenórean kings. I'm just going to read a little bit about Númenor. Also, Sting, please rest assured, this is not the first time I'm reading Lord of the Rings through on stream. I'm going to do this many times, and I kind of want to save some of the appendices for future readings because I feel we'll get more out of them after having read The Hobbit and the Silmarillion, you know? Trying to form like a larger kind of image of the world building. I also haven't read the bits of the appendices I'm about to read in a while because I've been doing Hobbit research for like 2 years. So, so yeah, I want to become reacquainted with the stuff I don't know or remember very much about, and that's the Númenórean kings, baby. Feanor was the greatest of the Eldar in arts and lore, but also the proudest and most self-willed. He wrought the 3 jewels, the Silmarilli, and filled them with the radiance of the 2 trees, Telperion and Laurelin, that gave light to the land of the Valar. The jewels were coveted by Morgoth the enemy, who stole them, and, after destroying the trees, took them to Middle-earth and guarded them in his great fortress of Thangorodrim. Against the will of the Valar, Feanor forsook the blessed realm and went in exile to Middle-earth, leading with him a great part of his people, for in his pride he purposed to recover the jewels from Morgoth by force. Thereafter followed the hopeless war of the Eldar and the Edain against Sangorodrim, in which they were at last utterly defeated. The Edain, Atani, were 3 peoples of men who, coming first to the west of Middle-earth and the shores of the Great Sea, became allies of the Eldar against the enemy. There were 3 unions of the Eldar and the Edain, Luthien and Beren, Idril and Tuor, and Arwen and Aragorn. By the last, the long sundered branches of the half-elven were reunited, and their line was restored, and we're going to read more about that later. Luthien Tenuviel was the daughter of King Thingol Greycloak of Doriath in the First Age, but her mother was Melian of the people of the Valar. Beren was the son of Barahir of the first house of the Edain. Together, they wrested a Silmaril from the iron crown of Morgoth. Luthien became mortal and was lost to elvenkind. Dior was her son. Elwing was his daughter, and had in her keeping the Silmaril. Idril Celebrindal was the daughter of Turgon, king of the hidden city of Gondolin. Tuor was the son of Huor of the house of Haldor, the 3rd house of the Edain, and the most renowned in the wars with Morgoth. Erendil the Mariner was their son. I love the name Erendil the Mariner. Ooh, excellent mouthfeel there. Erendil wedded Elwing, and with the power of the Silmaril passed the shadows and came to the uttermost west, and speaking as ambassador of both elves and men, obtained the help by which Morgoth was overthrown. Erendil was not permitted to return to mortal lands, and his ship bearing the Silmaril was set to sail in the heavens as a star, as a sign of hope to the dwellers in Middle-earth oppressed by the great enemy or his servants. The Silmarilli alone preserved the ancient light of the 2 trees of Valinor before Morgoth poisoned them, but the other 2 were lost at the end of the First Age. Of these things, the full tale, and much else concerning elves and men, is told in the Silmarillion, which is why I'm not going to read more here, because we're going to read the Silmarillion, dog. Okay, so here is a little bit of a longer one, but again, I feel pretty directly relevant to the story we just finished reading. We're going to do part 3 of Appendix A, which is Ariador, Arnor, and the heirs of Isildur. I always forget Arwen and Aragorn are related. I mean, yeah, same. Bjorn, son of Bjorn, marks exactly, literally, like Borning, son of Horning, son of Corning, son of Dorning. And yeah, I clearly would also quickly run out of ideas, but like, it is very funny when it's the same exact name, but 1 letter is different. Like, come on, guys. All right. Ariador was of old the name of all the lands between the Misty Mountains and the Blue. In the south, it was bounded by the Grey Flood and the Glanduin that flows into it above Tharbad. At its greatest, Arnor included all Ariador, except the regions beyond the Lune, and the lands east of Greyflood and Loudwater, in which lay Rivendell and Hollin. Beyond the Lune was Elvish country, green and quiet, where no men went, but dwarves dwelt and still dwell in the east side of the Blue Mountains, especially in those parts south of the Gulf of Lune, where they have mines that are still in use. For this reason, they were accustomed to pass east along the Grey Road, as they had done for long years before we came to the Shire. At the Grey Havens dwelt Círdan the shipwright, and some say he dwells there still, until the last ship sets sail into the west. In the days of the kings, most of the high elves that still lingered in Middle-earth dwelt with Círdan, or in the seaward lands of Lindon. If any now remain, they are few. All right, let's see. Lest we forget Gimli, son of Gloin, son of Groy. Right? Like, you really got to get into the correct pronunciation. Groin. Are we going to read Hobbit family trees? I mean, we can maybe explore them. I'm very familiar with them. If you want to talk about some silly shit on some family trees, I'm never not down to do that. I need to get my visual aids together, though, if we're going to do that. Let me think about it. Groin is always unfortunate. Also, I'm thinking about Grond now. Groin. Okay. The North Kingdom and the Dunedain. After Elendil and Isildur, there were 8 high kings of Arnor. After Erendur, owing to dissensions among his sons, their realm was divided into 3, Arthedain, Rhudaur, and Cardolan. Rhudaur. It's too many vowels. Arthedain was in the northwest and included the land between Brandywine and Lune, and also the land north of the Great Road, as far as the Weather Hills. Rhudaur was in the northeast and lay between the Etten Moors, the Weather Hills, and the Misty Mountains, but included also the angle between the Horwell and the Loudwater. Cardolan was in the south, its bounds being the Brandywine, the Grey Flood, and the Great Road. Again, visual aids. I should have brought a map. Oops. In Arthedain, the line of Isildur was maintained and endured, but the line soon perished in Cardolan and Rhudaur. There was often strife between the kingdoms, which hastened the waning of the Dunedain. The chief matter of debate was the possession of the Weather Hills and the land westward towards Bree. Both Rhudaur and Cardolan desired to possess Amansul, Weathertop, which stood on the borders of their realms, for the Tower of Amansul held the chief Palantir of the north, and the other 2 were both in the keeping of Arthedain. I don't know, I love Amansul parentheses Weathertop, like known on the streets as. It was in the beginning of the reign of Malvigil, Malvigil of Arthedain that evil came to Arnor. For at that time the realm of Angmar arose in the north beyond the Etten Moors. Its lands lay on both sides of the mountains, and there were gathered many evil men and orcs and other fell creatures. The lord of that land was known as the Witch King, but it was not known until later that he was indeed the chief of the Ringwraiths, who came north with the purpose of destroying the Dunedain in Arnor, seeing hope in their disunion while Gondor was strong. Saying if you want to find out how Merry and Bilbo are related, we can figure that out later. And yeah, Merry and Pippin are both related to Bilbo and Frodo several times. I think Pippin's related to Frodo like 2 or 3 different ways. Like they're super cousins. We can try to figure that out later if we have time. We'll see. Looks like I'm definitely going to have to do more of these appendices streams though, because I'm already thinking about it. In the days of Argelab, son of Malvigil, since no descendants of Isildur remained in the other kingdoms, the kings of Arthedain again claimed the lordship of all Arnor. The claim was resisted by Rhudaur. There the Dunedain were few, and power had been seized by an evil lord of the Hillmen, who was in secret league with Angmar. Argelab therefore fortified the Weather Hills, but he was slain in battle with Rhudaur and Angmar. Arvelig, son of Argelab. That's goofy. Arveleg, son of Argelab, with the hope of Cardolan and Lindon, drove back his enemies from the hills, and for many years Arthedain and Cardolan held in force a frontier along the Weather Hills, the Great Road, and the Lower Horwell. It is said that at this time Rivendell was besieged. A great host came out of Angmar in 1409, and crossing the river entered Cardolan and surrounded Weathertop. The Dunedain were defeated, and Arveleg was slain. He was slain. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm out of practice, fam. I haven't read out loud in a minute. Arveleg was slain. The Tower of Amansul was burned and razed, but the Palantir was saved and carried back in retreat to Fornost. Rhudaur was occupied by evil men subject to Angmar, and the Dunedain that remained there were slain or fled west, or slain. Cardolan was ravaged. Erefor, son of Arveleg, was not yet full grown, but he was valiant, and with aid from Círdan he repelled the enemy from Fornost and the North Downs. A remnant of the faithful among the Dunedain of Cardolan also held out in Tirn Gorthad, the Barrow Downs, or took refuge in the forest behind. Let's see, what are y'all talking about? Frodo is Pippin's second cousin, once removed on his mother's side. Yes, SH. Thank you. Factual. Is Fatty related to any of them? He was Slime, son of Sloan. Dude, okay. So you guys just want to look at family trees really quick? I can come back to Arvelig and Argeleb. I'm curious about Fatty Bulger now. You've made me curious. Let's see. There's a guy in here called Philibert Bulger. That's pretty good. Let's see. Okay. Also, okay, fucking on the on the Baggins family tree, we get various good bodies. Delightful. There's also a bunch of notes on the Took one that's like disappeared and never returned. Like, what a hilarious way to do a family tree. All right, let's see. Is Fredegar on here? Where's my boy? Yes, okay. So Fredegar and Pippin are cousins through Pippin's dad. And Fatty's mom is a Took? Yeah, okay. There we go. Rosamunda Took married Adovikar Bulger, and they had Fredegar. So Pippin and Mary are like direct cousins. I don't know what it is when it's like your parents, your great-grandparents, siblings, great-grandchild. I don't know if that's a second cousin or a third cousin, and I think they're once removed. I need to do some family tree math, but short answer, yes, they are related to at least Pippin, if not also Mary. Yep, definitely they share a common two in. Yep. We got there, fam. Let's get back to Argeleb. Various Good Body is my drag name. Please welcome to the stage. Various Good Bodies. Philibert Bulger streaming miniseries. I would watch it. I would watch it. If it was like a little cartoon in the style of The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, ooh, baby. I'm so on board, it's crazy. My goodness. Let's get back to Argeleb. It is said that Angmar was for a time subdued by the elven folk coming from Lindon and from Rivendell, for Elrond brought help over the mountains out of Lorien. It was at this time that the Stores had dwelt in the angle between Horwell and Loudwater, fled west and south because of the wars and the dread of Angmar, and because the land and climb of Eriador, especially in the east, worsened and became unfriendly. Some returned to Wilderland and dwelt beside the Gladden, becoming a riverside people of fishers. And this one guy called Smeagol had just one really bad day with his cousin Deagle. But yeah, I like the notes about hobbits making it into the histories of men and elves in here. So good. Oh, nobody knows about hobbits because they're not in the old books? Turns out now they are, bitch. Yeah, Flapjack. We love Flapjack. I fucking live for Flapjack. Oh my god. The simple lamb is good and fine, its fleece as white as curds, but when it tries to sing a song, it cannot form the words, as humans can, my lady. I fucking live for Flapjack. I need to find a way to watch it again. All right. In the days of Argeleb II, the plague came into Eriador from the southeast, and most of the people of Cardolan perished, especially in Minhiriath. The plague, y'all. The hobbits and all other peoples suffered greatly, but the plague lessened as it passed northwards, and the northern parts of Arthedain were little affected. It was at this time that an end came of the Dunedain of Cardolan, and evil spirits out of Angmar and Rhudaur entered into the deserted mounds and dwelt there. It is said that the mounds of Tir and Gorthad, as the Barrow Downs were called of old, are very ancient, and that many were built in the days of the old world of the first age by the forefathers of the Edain. Many were built in the days of the old world of the first age by the forefathers of the Edain, before they crossed the Blue Mountains into Beleriand, of which Lindon is now all that remains. Well, I'm only just now understanding where I get my tendency to write really fucking long sentences from. I learned it from watching you, Tolkien. Those hills were therefore revered by the Dunedain after their return, and there many of their lords and kings were buried. Some say that the mound in which the ring-bearer was imprisoned had been the grave of the last prince of Cardolan, who fell in the War of 1409. In 1974, the power of Angmar arose again, and the Witch King came down upon Arthedain before winter was ended. He captured Fornost and drove most of the remaining Dunedain over the Lune. Among them were the sons of the king. But King Arvedui held out in the North Downs until the last, and then he fled north with some of his guard, and they escaped by the swiftness of their horses. Let's see. Yeah, there's a little bit more here. For a little while, Arvedui hid in the tunnels of the old dwarf mines near the far end of the mountains, but he was driven at last by hunger to seek the help of the Lossoth, the snowmen of Forokel. Foroshel? I'm going to say Foroshel, because Forokel is too funny. I won't be able to keep it together. Some of these he found encamped by the seashore, but they did not help the king willingly, for he had nothing to offer them, save a few jewels which they did not value, and they were afraid of the Witch King, who, they said, could make frost or thaw at his will. But partly out of pity for the gaunt king and his men, and partly out of fear of their weapons, they gave them a little food and built for them snow huts. There Arvedui, that's how it's coming out of my face, Arvedui was forced to wait, hoping for help from the south, for his horses had perished. When Círdan heard from Aranarth, I wish it was Aranath, that would be easier. Aranarth, son of Arvedui, of the king's flight to the north. Oh, it's my dude's son, that makes sense. He at once sent a ship to Foroshel to seek for him. The ship came there at last after many days, because of contrary winds, and the mariners saw from afar a little fire of driftwood which the lost men contrived to keep alight. But the winter was long in loosing its grip that year, and though it was then March, the ice was only beginning to break and lay far out from the shore. When the snowmen saw the ship, they were amazed and afraid, for they had seen no such ship on the sea within their memories. But they had become now more friendly, and they drew the king and those that survived of his company out over the ice in their sliding carts as far as they dared. In this way, a boat from the ship was able to reach them. It's giving Ernest Shackleton, fam. But the snowmen were uneasy, for they said that they smelled danger in the wind. And the chief of the Lossoth said to Arvedui, "Do not mount on this sea monster. If they have them, let the seamen bring us food and other things that we need, and you may stay here till the Witch King goes home. For in summer his power wanes, but now his breath is deadly, and his cold arm is long." But Arvedui did not take his counsel. He thanked him, and at parting gave him his ring, saying, "This is a thing of worth beyond your reckoning, for its ancientry alone. It has no power, save the esteem in which those who hold it love my house. It will not help you, but if ever you are in need, my kin will ransom it with great store of all that you desire." It will not help you. Yet the counsel of the Lossoth was good, by chance or by foresight, for the ship had not reached the open sea when a great storm of wind arose, and came with blinding snow out of the north, and it drove the ship back upon the ice, and piled ice up against it. Even the mariners of Círdan were helpless, and in the night the ice crushed the hull, and the ship foundered. So perished Arvedui, last king, and with him the Palantiri that were buried in the sea. It was long afterwards that news of the shipwreck of Foroshel was learned from the snowmen. I mean, kind of serves him right, huh? The Shire folk survived, though war swept over them, and most of them fled into hiding. To the help of the king, they sent some archers who never returned, and others who went also to the battle in which Angmar was overthrown, of which more is said in the annals of the south. Afterwards, in the peace that followed, the Shire folk ruled themselves and prospered. They chose a thane to take the place of the king and were content, though for a long time many still looked for the return of the king. Hey, they said it. They said the name of the thing. But at last that hope was forgotten and remained only in the saying, when the king comes back, used of some good that could not be achieved or of some evil that could not be amended. When pigs fly, etc. The first Shire Thane was one Bucca of the Marish, from whom the old Bucks claimed descent. He became Thane in 379 of our reckoning. You know Bucca was a fucking mensch, too. You know that guy was cool as shit. All right, so that's... We have a little bit more. After Arvedui of the North Kingdom ended, for the Dunedain were now few, and all the peoples of Eriador diminished, yet the line of the kings was continued by the chieftains of the Dunedain, of whom Aranarth, son of Arvedui, was the first. Arahael, his son, was fostered in Rivendell, and so were all the sons of the chieftains after him, and there also were kept the heirlooms of their house, the ring of Barahir, the shards of Narsil, the star of Elendil, and the scepter of Anuminas. When the kingdom ended, the Dunedain passed into the shadows and became a secret and wandering people, and their deeds and labors were seldom sung or recorded. Little now is remembered of them since Elrond departed. Although even before the watchful peace ended, evil things again began to attack Eriador or to invade it secretly, the chieftains for the most part lived out their long lives. Aragorn I, it is said, was slain by wolves, which ever after remained a peril in Eriador, and are not yet ended. In the days of Arahad I, the orcs, who had, as later appeared, long been secretly occupying strongholds in the Misty Mountains, so as to bar all the passes into Eriador, suddenly revealed themselves. In 2509, Celebrian, wife of Elrond, was journeying to Lorien when she was waylaid in the Redhorn Pass, and her escort being scattered by the sudden assault of the orcs, she was seized and carried off. She was pursued and rescued by Elladan and Elrohir, but not before she had suffered torment and had received a poisoned wound. She was brought back to Imladris, and though healed in body by Elrond, lost all delight in Middle-earth, and the next year went to the havens and passed over the sea. And later, in the days of Arasuil, orcs, multiplying again in the Misty Mountains, began to ravage the lands, and the Dunedain and the sons of Elrond fought with them. It was at this time that a large band came so far west as to enter the Shire, and were driven off by Benderbra Took, my fucking boy. There were 15 chieftains, before the 16th and last was born, Aragorn II, who became again king of both Gondor and Arnor. Our king, we call him, and when he comes north to his house in Anuminas restored, and stays for a while by Lake Evandene, then everyone in the Shire is glad. But he does not enter this land, and binds himself by the law that he has made, that none of the big people shall pass its borders. But he rides often with many fair people to the great bridge, and there he welcomes his friends, and any others who wish to see him, and some ride away with him, and stay in his house as long as they have a mind. Thane Peregrine has been there many times, and so has Master Samwise the Mayor. His daughter Eleanor the Fair is one of the maids of the Queen Evenstar. That's so cute. Little play dates. Our king, we call him. I'm wondering who took that note. There's like a bunch of passages inside of quotation marks, and it's like, who's speaking right now? It was the pride and wonder of the northern line that, though their power departed and their people dwindled, through all the many generations the succession was unbroken from father to son. Also, though the length of lives of the Dunedain grew ever less in Middle-earth, after the ending of their kings the waning was swifter in Gondor, and many of the chieftains of the north still lived to twice the age of men, and far beyond the days of even the oldest among us. Aragorn indeed lived to be 210 years old, longer than any of his line since King Arvegil. Arvegil? But in Aragorn Elessar the dignity of kings of old was renewed. Chad shit. Yeah, I don't know. I like that you can just get kind of like a play-by-play history of Middle-earth in here. It's nice. He did a good job putting all this shit in here. All right, we're going to read about Steward Denethor from Part 4, The Stewards. We're going to read about Denethor. What do we got? What are we saying? Let's see. The Witch King did a bunch of coke at Studio 54 for sure. This is actually worth a lot to some people far away. Trust me. Yeah, like some people that you'll never meet, they'll definitely pay you a lot of money for this thing that I've said won't help you. So you can take that to the bank, I guess. Ice Crush the Hull is so Shackleton, like so Shackleton coded. Forgotten that about Eleanor. Yeah, it's really sweet that like when Aragorn goes to hang out, the hobbits go to chill with him. Like I love that Pippin goes to visit all the time. That's fucking cute as shit. And then yeah, Eleanor is one of the maids of Queen Evenstar. Amazing. All right, so when Denethor became steward in 2984, he proved a masterful lord, holding the rule of all things in his own hand. He said little. He listened to counsel and then followed his own mind. He had married late, 2976, taking his wife Finduilas, the daughter of Adrahil of Dol Amroth. She was a lady of great beauty and gentle heart, but before 12 years had passed, she died. Denethor loved her, in his fashion, more dearly than any other, unless it were the elder of the sons that she bore him. But it seemed to men that she withered in the guarded city, as a flower of the seaward vales set upon a barren rock. The shadow in the east filled her with horror, and she turned her eyes ever south to the sea that she missed. After her death, Denethor became more grim and silent than before, and would sit long alone in his tower, deep in thought, foreseeing the assault of Mordor would come in his time. It was afterwards believed that needing knowledge, but being proud and trusting in his own strength of will, he dared to look in the palantir of the White Tower. None of the stewards had dared to do this, nor even the kings Eärnil and Eärnor. Eärnil and Eärnor. And after the fall of Minas Ithil, when the Palantir of Palantir of Isildur came into the hands of the enemy, for the stone of Minas Tirith was the Palantir of Anarion, most close in accord with the one that Sauron possessed. Oh shit, got the direct line. In this way, Denethor gained his great knowledge of things that passed in his realm and far beyond his borders, at which men marveled. But he bought the knowledge dearly, being aged before his time by his contest with the will of Sauron. Thus pride increased in Denethor together with despair, until he saw in all the deeds of that time only a single combat between the Lord of the White Tower and the Lord of the Barad-dûr, and mistrusted all others who resisted Sauron, unless they served himself alone. So time drew on to the War of the Ring, and the sons of Denethor grew to manhood. Boromir, 5 years the elder, beloved by his father, was like him in face and pride, but in little else. Rather, he was a man after the sort of King Eärnur of old, taking no wife and delighting chiefly in arms, fearless and strong, but caring little for love, save the tales of old battles. Faramir the younger was like him in looks, but otherwise in mind. He read the hearts of men as shrewdly as his father, but what he read moved him sooner to pity than to scorn. He was gentle in bearing, and a lover of lore and of music, and therefore by many in those days his courage was judged less than his brother's. But it was not so, except that he did not seek glory and danger without a purpose. He welcomed Gandalf at such times as he came to the city, and he learned what he could from his wisdom, and in this, as in many other matters, he displeased his father. Yet between the brothers there was great love, and had been since childhood, when Boromir was the helper and protector of Faramir. No jealousy or rivalry had arisen between them since, for their father's favor or for the praise of men. It did not seem possible to Faramir that anyone in Gondor could rival Boromir, heir of Denethor, captain of the White Tower, and of like mind was Boromir. Yet it proved otherwise at the test. But of all that befell these three in the War of the Ring, much is said elsewhere. Yes, we know. Thank you. And after the war, the days of the ruling stewards came to an end, for the heir of Isildur and Anarion returned, and the kingship was renewed, and the standard of the White Tree flew once more from the tower of Icthelion. All right, fam. Here follows a part of the tale of Aragorn and Arwen, which is quite long, but I'm going to read it. We're going to do it. and then we'll read a short bit of Durin's Folk, and then that's it for today. What are we saying in here? Son of Eeyore, I bet they bone. All right. Here follows a part of the tale of Aragorn and Arwen. I'm gonna resituate because the sun is really bright in my eyes. Yeah. Ugh. Eredor was the grandfather of the king. His son Arathorn sought in marriage Gilraen the Fair, daughter of Deerhail, who was himself a descendant of Aranarth. To this marriage Deerhail was opposed, for Gilraen was young and had not reached the age at which the women of the Dunedain were accustomed to marry. Moreover, he said, Arathorn is a stern man of full age and will be chieftain sooner than men looked for, yet my heart forebodes that he will be short-lived. But Iverwin, his wife, who was also foresighted, answered, The more need of haste. The days are darkening before the storm, and great things are to come. If these two wed now, hope may be born for our people. But if they delay, it will not come while this age lasts. And it happened that when Arathorn and Gilraen had been married only 1 year, Eredor was taken by hill trolls in the cold fells north of Rivendell and was slain, and Arathorn became chieftain of the Dunedain. The next year, Gilraen bore him a son, and he was called Aragorn. But Aragorn was only 2 years old when Arathorn went riding against the orcs with the sons of Elrond, and he was slain by an orc arrow that pierced his eye. And so he proved indeed short-lived for one of his race, being but 60 years old when he fell from a fucking arrow in the eye, dude. Ugh. Oh, that's brutal. Maybe that's why Aragorn has a thing for beheading, dog. Who knows? Then Aragorn, being now the heir of Isildur, was taken with his mother to dwell in the house of Elrond, and Elrond took the place of his father and came to love him as a son of his own. But he was called Estel, that is, Hope, and his true name and lineage were kept secret at the bidding of Elrond, for the wise then knew that the enemy was seeking to discover the heir of Isildur, if any remained on earth. But when Estel was only 20 years of age, it chanced that he returned to Rivendell after great deeds in the company of the sons of Elrond, and Elrond looked at him and was pleased, for he saw that he was fair and noble, and was early come to manhood, though he would yet become greater in body and in mind. That day, therefore, Elrond called him by his true name, and told him who he was and whose son, and he delivered to him the heirlooms of his house. I love that. Aragorn comes back and Elrond's like, dude, you're shredded. You're so cool. Do you want to know about your dad? That rules. Here at 20, you're about to fucking bear the weight of the world on your shoulders, my guy. Good thing you've been hitting those traps. Here is the ring of Barahir, he said, the token of our kinship from afar, and here also are the shards of Narsil. With these you may yet do great deeds, for I foretell that the span of your life shall be greater than the measure of men, unless evil befalls you, or you fail the test. But the test will be hard and long. The scepter of Innuminas I withhold, for you have yet to earn it. Now, out of context, that would be very interesting now, wouldn't it? The next day, at the hour of sunset, Aragorn walked alone in the woods, and his heart was high within him, and he sang, for he was full of hope, and the world was fair. And suddenly, even as he sang, he saw a maiden walking on a greensward among the white stems of the birches. And he halted, amazed, thinking that he had strayed into a dream, or else that he had received the gift of the elf minstrels, who can make the things of which they sing appear before the eyes of those that listen. For Aragorn had been singing a part of the Lay of Luthien, which tells of the meeting of Luthien and Beren in the forest of Neldereth. And behold, there Luthien walked before his eyes in Rivendell, clad in a mantle of silver and blue, fair as the twilight in Elvenhome. Her dark hair strayed in a sudden wind, and her brows were bound with gems like stars. I know it means like a little crown, but I imagine like Zara Larson, like bedazzled eyebrows. For a moment, Aragorn gazed in silence, but fearing that she would pass away and never be seen again, he called to her, crying, To Nuviel, to Nuviel, even as Beren had done in the elder days long ago. Then the maiden turned to him and smiled, and she said, Who are you, and why do you call me by that name? And he answered, Because I believed you to be indeed Luthien to Nuviel, of whom I was singing. But if you are not she, then you walk in her likeness. So many have said, she answered gravely. Yet her name is not mine, though maybe my doom will be not unlike hers. But who are you? Estelle I was called, he said, but I am Aragorn, Arathorn's son, Isildur's heir, lord of the Dunedain. Yet even in the saying he felt that this high lineage, in which his heart had rejoiced, was now of little worth, and as nothing compared to her dignity and loveliness. Ooh, he's down so bad. But she laughed merrily and said, Then we are akin from afar, for I am Arwen, Elrond's daughter. I'm Elrond's daughter. I am Arwen, Elrond's daughter, and am named also Undomiel. Undomiel? I always put an extra N in there. Undomiel. There we go. Often is it seen, said Aragorn, that in dangerous days men hide their chief treasure. Yet I marvel at Elrond and your brothers, for though I've dwelt in this house from childhood, I've heard no word of you. Fucking shady. Oh, really? You're Elrond's daughter? Never heard of ya. How comes it that we've never met before? Surely your father has not kept you locked in his hoard? Not loving this, talking about her like she's an object. No, she said, and looked up at the mountains that rose in the east. I have dwelt for a time in the land of my mother's kin, in far Lothlorien. I have but lately returned to visit my father again. It is many years since I walked in Imladris. Then Aragorn wondered, for she had seemed of no greater age than he, who lived yet no more than a score of years in Middle-earth. But Arwen looked in his eyes and said, Do not wonder, for the children of Elrond have the life of the Eldar. Then Aragorn was abashed, for he saw the elven light in her eyes and the wisdom of many days, yet from that hour he loved Arwen Undomiel, daughter of Elrond. Arwen's like, I'm my own person. Yeah, 100%. Jeez, Aragorn. His fucking chat game is terrible. All right. In the days that followed, Aragorn fell silent, and his mother perceived that some strange thing had befallen him, and at last he yielded to her questions and told her of the meeting in the twilight of the trees. My son, said Gilraen, your aim is high, even for the descendant of many kings. My son, you're punching. For this lady is the noblest and fairest that now walks the earth, and it is not fit that mortals should wed with the elfkin. Trying to let him down easy. Dog, she's out of your league. Yet we have some part in that kinship, said Aragorn, if the tale of my forefathers is true that I have learned. It is true, said Gilraen, but that was long ago, and in another age of this world before our race was diminished. Therefore I am afraid, for without the goodwill of Master Elrond, the elves of Isildur will soon come to an end. But I do not think that you will have the goodwill of Elrond in this matter. Then bitter will my days be, and I will walk in the wild alone, said Aragorn. That will indeed be your fate, said Gilraen, but though she had in measure the foresight of her people, she said no more to him of her foreboding, nor did she speak to anyone of what her son had told her. But Elrond saw many things and read many hearts. One day, therefore, before the fall of the year, he called Aragorn to his chamber, and he said, Aragorn, Arathorn's son, lord of the Dunedain, listen to me. Stop fucking looking at my daughter. A great doom awaits you, either to rise above the height of all your fathers since the days of Elendil, or to fall into darkness with all that is left of your kin. Many years of trial lie before you. You shall have neither wife, nor bind any woman to you in troth, until your time comes and you are found worthy of it. Then Aragorn was troubled, and he said, Can it be that my mother has spoken of this? Is mommy cock-blocking me again? No, indeed, said Elrond. Your own eyes have betrayed you. But I do not speak of my daughter alone. You shall be betrothed to no man's child as yet. But as for Arwen the Fair, lady of Imladris and of Lorien, even star of her people, she is of greater lineage than yours, and she has lived in the world already so long that to her you are but a yearling shoot beside a young birch of many summers. To her you are but as a yearling shoot beside a young birch of many summers. She is too far above you. Whoa, ouch, whoo! And so I think it may well seem to her. But even if it were not so, and her heart turned towards you, I should still be grieved because of the doom that is laid on you. What is that doom? Said Aragorn. That so long as I abide here, she shall live with the youth of the Eldar, answered Elrond. And when I depart, she shall go with me if she so chooses. If she so chooses. I see, said Aragorn, that I have turned my eyes to a treasure no less dear than the treasure of Thingol that Beren once desired. Such is my fate. Then, suddenly, the foresight of his kindred came to him, and he said, But lo, Master Elrond, the years of your abiding run short at last, and the choice must soon be laid on your children to part either with you or with Middle-earth. Truly, said Elrond, soon as we account it, though many years of men must still pass. But there will be no choice before Arwen, my beloved, unless you, Aragorn, Arathorn's son, come between us and bring one of us, you or me, to a better parting beyond the end of the world. You do not know yet what you desire of me. He sighed, and after a while, looking gravely upon the young man, he said again, The years will bring what they will. We will speak no more of this until many have passed. The days darken, and much evil is to come. She's either going to love you or she's going to love me. Like, damn, the daddy issues on display here. Crazy. Then Aragorn took lovingly of Elrond, and the next day he said farewell to his mother and to the house of Elrond and to Arwen, and he went out into the wild. For nearly 30 years he labored in the cause against Sauron, and he became a friend of Gandalf the Wise, from whom he gained much wisdom. With him he made many perilous journeys, but as the years wore on he went more often alone. His ways were hard and long, and he became somewhat grim to look upon, unless he chanced to smile, and yet he seemed to men worthy of honor, as a king that is in exile. When he did not hide his true shape, for he went in many guises, and won renown under many names. He rode in the host of the Rohirrim, and fought for the Lord of Gondor by land and by sea, and then in the hour of victory he passed out of the knowledge of men of the West, and went alone far into the east and deep into the south, exploring the hearts of men both evil and good, and uncovering the plots and devices of the servants of Sauron. Thus he became at last the most hardy of living men, skilled in their crafts and lore, and was yet more than they, for he was elven wise, and there was a light in his eyes that when they were kindled few could endure. His face was sad and stern because of the doom that was laid upon him, and yet hope dwelt ever in the depths of his heart, from which mirth would arise at times like a spring from the rock. Ugh, Tolkien's fucking cooking, dude. Ooh. What a fucking pleasure to sit here in the sun and read this book. Come on now. It came to pass that when Aragorn was 49 years of age, he returned from the perils and the dark confines of Mordor, where Sauron now dwelt again, and was busy with evil. What are you busy with? Evil. He was weary, and he wished to go back to Rivendell and rest there for a while ere he journeyed into the far countries. And on his way he came to the borders of Lorien, and was admitted to the hidden land by the Lady Galadriel. Elrond has no fucking chill from stay away from my daughter to took leave lovingly, right? Elrond is sending mixed messages about something that's not his business. 1000 fucking percent. It's so funny that, like, I don't know. He's just meddling. He did not know it, but Arwen Undomiel was also there, dwelling again for a time with the kin of her mother. She was little changed, for the mortal years had passed her by, yet her face was more grave, and her laughter now seldom was heard. But Aragorn was grown to full stature of body and mind, and Galadriel bade him cast aside his way-worn raiment, and she clothed him in silver and white, with a cloak of elven grey and a bright gem on his brow, got him draped up and dripped out. Then more than any kind of men he appeared, and seemed rather an elf lord from the Isles of the West. And thus it was that Arwen first beheld him again after their long parting, and as he came walking towards her under the trees of Caras Galadon, laden with flowers of gold, her choice was made, and her doom appointed. Oh no, he's hot. Then for a season they wandered together in the glades of Lothlorien, until it was time for him to depart. And on the evening of midsummer, Aragorn, Arathorn's son, and Elrond, Arwen, daughter of Elrond, went to the fair hill, Cairn Amroth, in the midst of the land, and they walked unshod on the undying grass with Elenor and Nifredil about their feet. And there upon that hill they looked east to the shadow, and west to the twilight, and they plighted their troth, and were glad. Their troth? Plighted their troth? It's a betrothal, so I'm going to say troth. And Arwen said, Dark is the shadow, and yet my heart rejoices, for you, Estelle, shall be among the great whose valor will destroy it. But Aragorn answered, Alas, I cannot foresee it, and how it may come to pass is hidden from me. Yet with your hope I will hope, and the shadow I utterly reject. But neither lady is the twilight for me, for I am immortal. And if you will cleave to me, Evenstar, then the twilight you must also renounce. And she stood then still as a white tree, looking into the west, and at last she said, I will cleave to you, Dunedain, and turn from the twilight. Yet there lies the land of my people, and the long home of all my kin. She loved her father dearly. Oof, but she made her choice, baby. Zephyr, that's a great little factoid, dude. Elrond is like Father Francis Xavier Morgan, who told Tolkien he had to get his life together before getting married to Edith. Very good, very good. Galadriel, wing woman. Yeah, fucking next level wing woman game. Unshod. Yeah, walking around barefoot. Freaky deaky. Couple of freaks. When Elrond learned the choice of his daughter, he was silent, though his heart was grieved and found the doom long feared none the easier to endure. But when Aragorn came again to Rivendell, he called to him, and he said, My son, years come when hope will fade, and beyond them little is clear to me. And now a shadow lies between us. We're in a fight. Maybe it has been appointed so, that by my loss the kingship of men may be restored. Therefore, though I love you, I say to you, Arwen Undomiel shall not diminish her life's grace for less cause. She shall not be the bride of any man less than the king of both Gondor and Arnor. To me, then, even our victory can bring only sorrow and parting, but to you, hope of joy for a while. Alas, my son, I fear that to Arwen the doom of men may seem hard at the ending. She's going to choose me, my man. So it stood afterwards between Elrond and Aragorn, and they spoke no more of this matter, but Aragorn went forth again to danger and toil. And while the world darkened and fear fell on Middle-earth as the power of Sauron grew and the Barad-dûr rose ever taller and stronger, Arwen remained in Rivendell, and when Aragorn was abroad, from afar she watched over him in thought, and in hope she made for him a great and kingly standard, such as only one might display who claimed the lordship of the Númenóreans and the inheritance of Elendil. After a few years, Gilraen took leave of Elrond and returned to her own people in Eriador, and lived alone, and she seldom saw her son again, for he spent many years in far countries. But on a time, when Aragorn had returned to the north, he came to her, and she said to him before he went, This is our last parting, Estelle, my son. I am aged by care, even as one of lesser men, and now that it draws near, I cannot face the darkness of our time that gathers upon Middle-earth. I shall leave it soon. Aragorn tried to comfort her, saying, "Yet there may be a light beyond the darkness, and if so, I would have you see it and be glad." But she answered only with this Lanad. Onan I estel Edain, Uchebin estel Anim. And Aragorn went away heavy of heart. Gilraen died before the next spring. Thus the years drew on to the War of the Ring, of which more is told elsewhere. How the means unforeseen was revealed whereby Sauron might be overthrown, and how hope beyond hope was fulfilled. And it came to pass that in the hour of defeat, Aragorn came up from the sea and unfurled the standard of Arwen in the battle of the fields of Pelennor. And in that day he was first hailed as king. And at last, when all was done, he entered into the inheritance of his fathers, and received the crown of Gondor and scepter of Arnor. And at midsummer, in the year of the fall of Sauron, he took the hand of Arwen Undomiel, and they were wedded in the city of the kings. The third age ended thus in victory and hope, and yet grievous among the sorrows of that age was the parting of Elrond and Arwen, for they were sundered by the sea, and by a doom beyond the end of the world. When the great ring was unmade, and the three were shorn of their power, then Elrond grew weary at last, and forsook Middle-earth, never to return. But Arwen became as a mortal woman, and yet it was not her lot to die until all that she had gained was lost. Damn, dude. Ouch. Also, I kind of love the Arwen Aragorn Elrond love triangle and how it made it into the movies. So silly. The way they did it was weird, but I appreciate that they tried. As queen of elves and men, she dwelt with Aragorn for 60 years in great glory and bliss, and yet at last he felt the approach of old age and knew that the span of his life days was drawing to an end, long though it had been. Then Aragorn said to Arwen, "At last, Lady Evenstar, fairest in this world and most beloved, my world is fading. Lo, we have gathered and we have spent, and now the time of payment draws near." Arwen knew well what he intended, and long had foreseen it. Nonetheless, she was overborne by grief. "Would you then, Lord, before your time, leave your people that live by your word?" she said. "Not before my time," he answered, "for if I will not go now, then I must soon go perforce. And Eldarion our son is a man full ripe for kingship." Then going to the house of the kings in the silent street, Aragorn laid him down on the long bed that had been prepared for him. There he said farewell to Eldarion, and gave into his hands the winged crown of Gondor and the scepter of Arnor, and then all left him save Arwen, and she stood alone by his bed. And for all her wisdom and lineage she could not forbear to plead with him to stay yet for a while. She was not yet weary of her days, and thus she tasted the bitterness of the mortality that she had taken upon her. "Lady Undomiel," said Aragorn, "the hour is indeed hard, yet it was made even in that day when we met under the white birches in the garden of Elrond where none now walk. And on the hill of Carin Amroth when we forsook both the shadow and the twilight, this doom we accepted. Take counsel with yourself, beloved, and ask whether you would indeed have me wait until I wither and fall from my high seat unmanned and witless. Nay, lady, I am the last of the Númenóreans and the latest king of the elder days, and to me has been given not only a span thrice that of men of Middle-earth, but also the grace to go at my will, and give back the gift. Now, therefore, I will sleep. I speak no comfort to you, for there is no comfort for such pain within the circles of the world. The uttermost choice is before you, to repent and go to the havens, and bear away into the west the memory of our days together, that shall there be evergreen, but never more than memory, or else to abide the doom of men." "Nay, dear lord," she said, "that choice is long over. There is now no ship that would bear me hence, and I must indeed abide the doom of men, whether I will or I nill, the loss and the silence. But I say to you, king of the Númenóreans, not till now have I understood the tale of your people and their fall. As wicked fools I scorned them, but I pity them at last. For if this is indeed, as the Eldar say, the gift of the one to men, it is bitter to receive." "So it seems," he said, "but let us not be overthrown at the final test, who of old renounced the shadow and the ring. In sorrow we must go, but not in despair." Excuse me. "Behold, we are not bound forever to the circles of the world, and beyond them is more than memory. Farewell." "Estelle, Estelle," she cried, and with that, even as he took her hand and kissed it, he fell into sleep. Then a great beauty was revealed in him, so that all who came after there looked on him in wonder, for they saw that the grace of his youth and the valor of his manhood and the wisdom and majesty of his age were blended together. And long there he lay, an image of the splendor of the kings of men, in glory undimmed before the breaking of the world. But Arwen went forth from the house, and the light of her eyes was quenched, and it seemed to her people that she had become cold and gray as nightfall in winter that comes without a star. Then she said farewell to Eldarion and to her daughters and to all whom she loved, and she went out from the city of Minas Tirith and passed away to the land of Lorien, and dwelt there alone under the fading trees until winter came. Galadriel had passed away, and Celeborn also was gone, and the land was silent. There at last, when the Malorn leaves were falling, but spring had not yet come, she laid herself to rest upon Cairn Amroth. And there is her green grave until the world is changed, and all the days of her life are utterly forgotten by men that come after, and Eleanor and Nifradil bloom no more east of the sea. Here ends this tale, as it has come to us from the south, and with the passing of Evenstar no more is said in this book of the days of old. Ooh, banger. So fucking sad. Ouch. Like crazy. Ooh. I do. Ooh. Ooh, the tale of Aragorn and Arwen, dude. I love so much that Tolkien included that whole deal. So much drama. Like, fuck the hunt for Gollum. I would watch like a highly dramatic, emotional television show about the tale of Aragorn and Arwen. Peter Jackson, you should call me. I've got some shit to say to you. All right, I'm going to read a little bit from the end of Appendix A, Durin's Folk. We're not going to read all of it because there's a lot of it and I'm tired. I've been reading for an hour, but we're about to read The Hobbit. So if it becomes more relevant after we read The Hobbit, maybe we'll dip a toe back in here and read the whole deal. But I want to read the bits that are relevant to the ring. Yeah, Arwen dies like a year after Aragorn. Makes sense. Dying of a broken heart and all that. Arwen is dying. The yearning. I've thought this. The tale of them is right there for the movie making. I think it would be like a lovely departure from action scene, cartoon barrels boing boing. I think it'd be really nice to like really delve into the like deep romantic tragedy of it all. Yeah, Baron and Luthien as an opera would fucking go, dude. Ugh. Where are the women? All right. Of this ring, something may be said here. It was believed by the dwarves of Durin's folk to be the first of the 7 that was forged, and they say that it was given to the king of Khazad-dûm, Durin III, by the elven smiths themselves, and not by Sauron, though doubtless his evil power was on it, since he'd aided in the forging of all the 7. But the possessors of the ring did not display it or speak of it, and they seldom surrendered it till near death, so that others did not know for certain where it was bestowed. Some thought that it remained in Khazad-dûm in the secret tombs of the kings, if they had not been discovered and plundered. But among the kindred of Durin's heir, it was believed, wrongly, that Thror had worn it when he rashly returned there. What then had become of it they did not know. It was not found on the body of Azog. And yeah, that's one of the rings of power that was given to the dwarves. Nonetheless, it may well be, as the dwarves now believe, that Sauron by his arts had discovered who had this ring, the last to remain free, and that the singular misfortunes of the heirs of Durin were largely due to his malice, for the dwarves had proved untamable by this means. The only power over them that the rings wielded was to inflame their hearts with the greed of gold and precious things, so that if they lacked them, all other good things seemed profitless, and they were filled with wrath and desire for vengeance on all who deprived them. But they were made from their beginning of a kind to resist most steadfastly any domination. Though they could be slain or broken, they could not be reduced to shadows enslaved to another will, and for the same reason their lives were not affected by any ring, to live either longer or shorter because of it. All the more did Sauron hate the possessors and desire to dispossess them. I like that. The rings don't really work great on the dwarves. That's fucking cool as shit. There is a Russian opera about the Battle of Sauron and Finrod. Sick. Okay, let's try to find that. Ooh, I'd watch a recording of that. Let's go. All of this is so ripe for adaptation into opera. Ooh. It was therefore perhaps partly by the malice of the ring that Thrain, after some years, became restless and discontented. The lust for gold was ever in his mind. At last, when he could endure it no longer, he turned his thoughts to Erebor and resolved to go back there. He had nothing to Thorin of what was in his heart. He said nothing to Thorin of what was in his heart, rather, but with Balin and Dwalin and a few others, he arose and said farewell and departed. Ooh, I can't wait to read all these dwarf names in The Hobbit, dude. Balin and Dwalin and Dasher and Prancer. Little is known of what happened to him afterwards. It would now seem that as soon as he was abroad with few companions, he was hunted by the emissaries of Sauron. Wolves pursued him, orcs waylaid him, evil birds shadowed his path, and the more he strove to go north, the more misfortunes opposed him. There came a dark night when he and his companions were wandering in the land beyond Anduin, and they were driven by a black rain to take shelter under the eaves of Mirkwood. In the morning he was gone from the camp, and his companions called him in vain. They searched for him many days, until at last, giving up hope, they departed, and came at length back to Thorin. Only long after was it learned that Thrain had been taken alive and brought to the pits of Dol Guldur. There he was tormented, and the ring taken from him, and there at last he died. So Thorin Oakenshield became the heir of Durin, but an heir without hope. When Thrain was lost, he was 95, a great dwarf of proud bearing, but he seemed content to remain in Eriador. There he labored long, and trafficked, and gained such wealth as he could, and his people were increased by many of the wandering folk of Durin, who heard of his dwelling in the west and came to him. Now they had fair halls in the mountains, and store of goods, and their days did not seem so hard, though in their songs they spoke ever of the lonely mountain far away. The years lengthened. The embers in the heart of Thorin grew hot again, and he brooded on the wrongs of his house and the vengeance upon the dragon that he had inherited. He thought of weapons and armies and alliances, and as his great hammer rang in his forge, but the armies were dispersed and the alliances broken, and the axes of his people were few, and a great anger without hope burned him as he smote the red iron on the anvil. Oh, a little angsty Thorin blacksmithing vignette? Come on. Ooh, there's something for everybody in the appendices, huh? But at last there came about by chance a meeting between Gandalf and Thorin that changed all the fortunes of the House of Durin and led to other and greater ends beside. On a time, Thorin, returning west from a journey, stayed at Bree for the night. There Gandalf was also. He was on his way to the Shire, which he had not visited for some 20 years. He was weary and thought to rest there for a while. He goes to fucking chill with his little buddies when he's tuckered out. Come on now. Among many cares, he was troubled in mind by the perilous state of the north, because he knew then already that Sauron was plotting war and intended, as soon as he felt strong enough, to attack Rivendell. But to resist any attempt from the east to regain the lands of Angmar and the northern passes in the mountains, there were now only the dwarves of the Iron Hills, and beyond them lay the desolation of the dragon. The dragon Sauron might use with terrible effect. How then could the end of Smaug be achieved? It was even as Gandalf sat and pondered this that Thorin stood before him and said, "Master Gandalf, I know you only by sight, but now I should be glad to speak with you. For you have often come into my thoughts of late, as if I were bidden to seek you. Indeed, I should have done so if I had known where to find you." In this sick-ass inn with Barlam and Butterbur, Gandalf looked at him with wonder. That is strange, Thorin Oakenshield, he said, for I have thought of you also, and though I am on my way to the Shire, it was in my mind that this way was also to your halls. It was in my mind that Oh, for though I am on my way to the Shire, it was in my mind that is the way also to your halls. Call them so if you will, said Thorin. They are only poor lodgings in exile. But you would be welcome there if you would come. For they say that you are wise and know more than any other of what goes on in the world, and I have much on my mind and would be glad of your counsel. I will come, said Gandalf, for I guess that we share one trouble at least. The dragon of Erebor is on my mind, and I do not think that he would be forgotten by the grandson of Thror. I love Thror. I love to say Thror. Thrain. Thror. The story is told elsewhere of what came of that meeting, of the strange plan that Gandalf made for the help of Thorin, and how Thorin and his companions set out from the Shire on the quest of the Lonely Mountain that came to great ends unforeseen. Here only those things are recalled that directly concern Durin's folk, because there's a whole other book called The Hobbit you can read, you nerds. The dragon was slain by Bard of Isgarath, but there was battle in Dale. For the orcs came down upon Erebor as soon as they heard of the return of the dwarves, and they were led by Bolg, son of that Azog whom Dain slew in his youth. In that first battle of Dale, Thorin Oakenshield was mortally wounded, and he died and was laid in a tomb under the mountain with the Arkenstone upon his breast. Spoilers for The Hobbit. There fell also Fili and Kili, his sister sons, but Dain Ironfoot, his cousin, who came from the Iron Hills to his aid and was also his rightful heir, became then King Dain II. Dain, it's not Dane! And the kingdom under the mountain was restored, even as Gandalf had desired. Dain proved a great and wise king, and the dwarves prospered and grew strong again in his day. In the late summer of that same year, 2941, Gandalf had at last prevailed upon Saruman and the White Council to attack Dol Guldur, and Sauron retreated and went to Mordor, there to be secure, as he thought, from all his enemies. So it was that when the war came at last, the main assault was turned southwards. Yet, even so, with his far-stretched right hand, Sauron might have done great evil in the north, if King Dain and King Brand had not stood in his path. Even as Gandalf said afterwards to Frodo and Gimli, when they dwelt together for a time in Minas Tirith, not long before news had come to Gondor of events far away. Not long before, news had come to Gondor of events far away. Let's see. You can find it on YouTube. Okay. Streaming party. If anyone can find the link before I close this so I don't forget about it, that would be sick. You get 10 Lembas points. In the Silmarillion, there are literal singing contest fights, yes. Not a like to our kin. Not a like to our kin. Not a like to our kin. All right, let's see. I grieved at the fall of Thorin, said Gandalf, and now we hear that Dain has fallen, fighting in Dale again, even while we fought here. I should call that a heavy loss, if it was not a wonder, rather, that in his great age he could still wield his axe mightily, as they say that he did, standing over the body of King Brand before the gate of Erebor until the darkness fell. Yet things might have gone far otherwise and far worse. When you think of the great battle of the Pelennor, do not forget the battles in Dale and the valor of Durin's folk. Think of what might have been. Dragon fire and savage swords in Eriador, nigh in Rivendell. Or night in Rivendell. There it is. Night in Rivendell. There might be no queen in Gondor. We might now hope to return from the victory here only to ruin and ash. But that has been averted, because I met Thorin Oakenshield one evening on the edge of spring in Bree. A chance meeting, as we say in Middle-earth. A eucatastrophe, as we say in Middle-earth. Dís was the daughter of Thrain II. She is the only dwarf woman named in these histories. It was said by Gimli that there are few dwarf women, probably no more than a third of the whole people. They seldom walk abroad except at great need. They are, in voice and appearance, and in garb if they must go on a journey, so like to the dwarf men that to the eyes and ears of other peoples cannot tell them apart. This has given rise to the foolish opinion among men that there are no dwarf women, and that the dwarves grow out of stone. It is because of the fewness of women among them that the kinds of dwarves increases slowly, and is in peril when they have no secure dwellings. For dwarves take only one wife or husband each in their lives, and are jealous, as in all matters of their rights. The number of dwarf men that marry is actually less than 1/3. For not all the women take husbands. Some desire none, some desire one that they cannot get, and so will have no other. As for the men, very many also do not desire marriage, being engrossed in their crafts. I'm getting queer utopia here, asexual utopia. Gimli, Glóin's son, is renowned, for he was one of the 9 walkers that set out with the ring, and he remained in the company of King Elessar throughout the war. He was named Elfriend because of the great love that grew between him and Legolas, son of King Thranduil, and because of his reverence for the Lady Galadriel, but mostly because him and Legolas are boyfriends, and then they're husbands, and then they go to the Undying Lands together. After the fall of Sauron, Gimli brought south a part of the dwarf folk of Erebor, and he became Lord of the Glittering Caves. Ooh, mansion! He and his people did great works in Gondor and Rohan. For Minas Tirith, they forged gates of mithril and steel to replace those broken by the Witch King. Legolas, his friend, also brought south elves out of Greenwood, and they dwelt in Ithilien, and it became once again the fairest country in all the Westlands. Oh, and they were neighbors. But when King Elessar gave up his life, Legolas followed at last the desire of his heart and sailed over the sea. Here follows one of the last notes in the Red Book. We have heard tell that Legolas took Gimli, Glóin's son, with him because of their great friendship, greater than any that has been between elf and dwarf. If this is true, then it is strange indeed that a dwarf should be willing to leave Middle-earth for any love, or that the Eldar should receive him, or that the lords of the West should permit it. But it is said that Gimli went also out of desire to see again the beauty of Galadriel, and it may be that she, being mighty among the Eldar, obtained this grace for him. More cannot be said of this matter. Again, Galadriel's the ultimate wing woman. She's like, you want to be with Legolas forever? Let's just say it's because you want to come hang out with me. Okay, I got it. Passport stamped. Let's go. And also, I like the phrasing of when King Elessar gave up his life, because that's pretty much what he did, right? He was like, listen, I want to die while I'm still pretty good. And Arwen, you don't want to see me basically like get Alzheimer's and forget who I am. So bye. Like, he just lays down and fucking dies, dude. Crazy. So that's some excerpts from Appendix A. I might come back and do more next week. We'll see. Let me think about it. But we're either going to start The Hobbit next week or do a little bit more appendices stuff. Because turns out it is pretty fun to figure out if hobbits are related to each other. Oh my god, they were shipmates. Thank you, Marks. Really appreciate it. You're the best. All right. Well, y'all, I'm just biding my time now. I'm very eager to start The Hobbit, but if you would like to hear more appendices, tell me about it, and we'll do that next week instead. But it'll be a game time decision. I'm going to figure it out. But yeah, it's so good to be back with y'all. I'm intending to just keep doing consecutive weeks because I can't leave the country for a bit because I'm applying for indefinite leave to remain. So wish me luck. And now I'm going to go eat leftover jambalaya. Thank you for hanging out with me. I love y'all so much. I missed doing this. Ooh, I'm rusty. So thank you for bearing with me. And I'll do what you're keen to do. I'm keen to do all of it, unfortunately. That's why I'm asking for help deciding, because like I would just fucking sit and read the appendices, but it would take so long. It's so much of the book. Like I can't do it. But there are some good little tidbits in there. So I'll extract some more tidbits if we are going to do it. We'll see. Thank y'all for being here. And yeah, I'll see you next week with whatever it's going to be. Love you. Bye. Mwah.